So they take us to some random hallway of some random house. And here, behind that utterly random door, with no signs or anything, is a shop that exists only for locals. My people! Today I will show you what it's like to live in a country where you need to take the labels off Coca-Cola bottles before entering. Cars in villages here run on wood. Every PC must be registered with the police, who will then check it on a monthly basis. And local people dream of travelling to Czechoslovakia and the German Democratic Republic, countries that haven't existed for over 30 years. Newspapers state that their president can predict the weather. And if, God forbid, you take down a government slogan plate, you risk not only being punished, but actually jailed. 15 years of labour to be precise, for disrespect. We will travel to the most protected sites of North Korea. Concrete blocks that are supported by wood, that can be taken out when needed to block this road. We'll interview not only those who managed to escape the camp, but the country itself.
I went to the prison camp when I was only 13 years old, and I got out when I was 41.
I'll show you how people live in villages, not the postcard Pyongyang that foreigners usually get to see, but actual North Korean slums. We have a rare opportunity right now to see villagers up close. Behind me is a woman that collects grass. All of this will happen under 24-hour control and fear of being caught filming. Are you filming? No. I think it's filming. No, it's not. At first glance, it looks like a wonder of the world. Just look down there. It's slums that no one pays attention to. Of course I brought presents for you. Some local money, which is mega exclusive since it's prohibited to move them outside of the country. So yeah, definitely exclusive. Also a poster and some snake moonshine. The draw for which will be done on my channel, and I'll fill you in on how to participate. This is Leodor and our series on people. Subscribe and I won't disappoint. You see this guy next to me? He's a journalist from AP. That woman in national dress is part of his convoy. 2 more are waiting outside, and one of them is a Secret Service agent. This is how it's done here. For a journalist to enter the country, he must be invited personally by the government.
Make some kind of report here?
I hope to, yes.
Yeah.
The guys from another acclaimed TV series were also hoping. Came here filming, but in the end the show got cancelled because there are trained people who meet you, follow you everywhere and introduce you to well-dressed and media-trained people who, by total coincidence, love their president and think that Americans are bastards. She is recording everything he says to check it before it gets published. Then there is another team that goes over it all again and provide permission to publish, or don't provide it. One reporter managed to hide the hard drives that later weren't checked. His name is Vitaly Mansky. He then made a documentary showing the backstage of filming and an interview with a local family, which was filmed in 7 takes because actors weren't laughing enough, expressing a happy family with a house full of food. You have to eat a lot of kimchi. I am eating it. Here, eat more kimchi. Simi, you have to eat lots of kimchi. Okay, Dad. Sinmi, eat your soup. Okay. Sinmi, you have to eat lots of kimchi. I am eating lots of it. So I decided to eat lots of kimchi and visit as a typical tourist. But problem is that if you're a reporter, you'll never be given a tourist visa. So I got employed by a law firm and worked there for 2 months, then got my papers and was granted a permit. Since Koreans fully trust the papers, a plane to China, then train. Actually, it's the only chance to talk to North Koreans, so we're not specifically prepared to talk to foreigners.
没法迈步，只好摆出无所谓的态度，金玉其外败出其中，真正的霸主不用外露，更不用谁来帮我带路，跟我路一直在脚下踩，只要我想要的都会有，当时从来都不需要老爸买 All by myself， 跟你不同，心甘情愿的当个蛀虫，我想靠自己的双手赚，哪怕有段时间特别穷，你说没钱就没朋友，那种朋友跟钱走，他们只会跟你蹭红酒，一旦都市没人生援手，我早看透。
They are letting us onto the train now. This is my ticket. This is what it looks like. If you ask me whether I have fear, to be honest, I do. Because when I was preparing for the trip, I had peace of mind. But then I stumbled upon a story when an American student went to Pyongyang with the same tourist visa, just like mine, stayed at the same hotel, even his itinerary was the same. And he wanted to steal some propaganda. It wasn't a flag, it wasn't a crest, not the president's picture, just a red poster that read, "Let's all be patriotic like Kim Jong-un." He got 15 years of labour camps for disrespect.
Worst decision of my life. But I'm only human.
An international scandal followed suit. Even Trump took part in it. The student was released, but in some strange state. As 5 days upon his return to the US, the guy just died. According to UN, there are 200,000 prisoners in North Korean labour camps. And taking into account population of 25 million, it's about 800 people per 100,000, which is more than in the US, China, Russia, and everywhere else in the world. Apparently, the whole national North Korean football team that lost the championship in 1966 was sentenced to a camp, partly because they got drunk before the game. North Korea denies this. They even made a documentary about them, 30 years later, showing the players in good health. But then again, you never know where they were for the intervening 30 years. The train split into two parts. The red carriage, Chinese, whilst Korean carriages are green, with separate access, checks, much more security. They then weigh your luggage, and as I speak, we are greeted with North Korean security. They have badges with pictures of their leaders. They asked me, Toichi, Toichi. Don't know what to say, so I replied, Toichi, and he let me go. Don't know what it means. Let's go in. It's a nice carriage, by the way. Aircon works well. First good impression. This means of getting into the country usually gives a good first indication. There used to be 3 shelves per compartment, but later it was decided that it was much more important to make a good impression on foreigners than to profit from additional seating. Also, if the train is fully booked and then some tourists appear, they will remove North Koreans and put them on the following train. Poor guys, looking for their seats, but they don't have them, since we're here. Similar to Russia, everyone has lots of bags. Everyone is sweating, moving luggage around, changing their clothes, since they have to look good when entering the country, and share food all around. The carriage officer then decides to move me. He called me like this, and showed me an empty compartment. I told him I don't understand, and that I like my seat. He then repeats himself a bunch of times, and then stopped smiling, and once again pointed to the other compartment. I decided not to argue. Once we took off, Koreans got their food out, and since a table was not enough, these guys were using their luggage case. They like to have loads of plates on the table, and would never put rice and chicken on the same plate. This is why you need room. Here's a life hack for you. To open your beer, you put chopsticks underneath the lid, and then bang them on a table. They just banned me from filming. I'm in the loo now. This is what the sink looks like. The goal is to save water. So you wash your hands and flush, using the same water. I then checked out the Chinese part, and they were totally opposite. Use as much water as you want, but there is no sink. I'm walking through the Chinese part. It's about 10 carriages long, and I'm getting closer to the 2 Korean carriages, where my seat is. But check this out. There is a sign on the door that connects the 2 parts. The door is locked, and I have no idea how to get back. Ah, great. The carriage worker's seen me. He's opening the door for me. Another example of North Korean isolation. Do I need to knock now? Oh, he'll open it. He doesn't have the keys for the North Korean side. So I knock, I guess? Yep, there he is. Our North Korean friend with his shirt undone. Letting us into the North Korean side. Entering the isolated part of the train. Once I'm in, he caught up with me. Made up his shirt and asked me to film myself intact. Asked me to film him buttoned up. They actually understand Russian. Don't give it away, but actually they understand it. It takes 1 day to get to the border, and 1 more day through the DPRK.
更不用谁来帮我带路，跟我路一直在脚下踩，只要我想要的都会有，倒是从来都不需要老爸买。All by myself， 跟你不同，心甘情愿的当个蛀虫。我想靠自己的双手赚，哪怕有段时间特别穷。你说没钱就没朋友，那种朋友跟钱走，他们只会对你蹭红酒。一旦都市没人伸援手，我早看透。
It's night here. We're getting closer to the border. Border controllers meant to come to check the bags, phones, laptops and the rest. I need to prepare. Roughly 10 officers enter the carriage, colonels and lieutenants. And look, they ask people to remove the labels from Coke bottles. Poor guy rips it with his teeth because it's from an enemy state. But when you don't have a label, no one would know. The other guy rips off labels from the Tabasco sauce in the bathroom, since it's also made in the USA. Hatred towards the US is one of the pillars of this ideology. We'll discuss that later. Even Chinese iPhone copies are banned in the country. Or a Canon camera, priced at around $3,000. Although Canon is a Japanese company, it is also hated, as Japan nearly annexed North Korea 100 years ago. Of course, it is forbidden to film how security confiscated enough hardware to open a shop. I, on the other hand, hid my GoPros and USBs in my socks, constantly risking being figured out, since I can easily be looked up on YouTube, and internet is still available at the border. My job was to eliminate any excuses for them to do so, and as I was constantly filming, carriage officers constantly asked me, who am I really? My friend is asking what your job is. Lawyer? Journalist? No, I'm a lawyer. Oh, lawyer, okay then. The only thing that saved me when security asked to browse my phone for pictures and videos is that I moved it all to another folder prior to the search. By the way, phones were banned in North Korea up to the year 2013. They'd confiscate it at the border and return it to you once you left. Today, they allow you to keep it, but will most likely check your photos and ask you to declare all hardware you import. You separately have to mention if you have a sat-nav, a standard phone, or a satellite phone, and a number of cameras. Everything you bring in, you have to leave with, and God forbid if the numbers don't match. One of the Koreans put headphones on my shelf, saying that they won't be confiscated from a foreigner. I've read that tourists don't get searched, but it's not true. They check everything. Took everything out of my bags, opened every box I had. Every time I want to film, I have to find a secluded place so no one sees me. Behind me now is a guy who is watching out for us. They open everything, every bag. Check the carriage itself, check the floor, the bins, then ask the worker to empty it for accumulated cigarette butts. Because everything needs to be clean when you enter the country. Koreans shave and get dressed nicely. This guy put trousers over a tracksuit, although it's 40 degrees C outside, right after the border. Locals cranked some Chinese vodka and invited me to join. Once slightly drunk, they shared what real wages are, but we'll return to this later. We're now leaving China, where a river acts as a border. Behind me, a bridge that doesn't reach North Korea. You can see the last pillar, and then it's just nothing. As like many other connecting bridges, it has been purposefully demolished. People, here is a question for you. How long do you think North Korea has existed for? 40 years? 70 years? 200 years? 1,000? The right answer is 71 years, as it originated after World War II. Prior to that, United Korea was a colonial state of Japan. In 1945, Japan surrenders and is left without its colonies, just like Germany. And whilst Russia and the US decide on Korea's future, citizens rush to create a new government. Russia and the US split it into two parts that will soon begin to hate each other. The border is set across the 38th parallel. At the helm of a capitalistic state, Americans put an anti-communist, Ri Sing-man, whilst the USSR takes full control of the northern part, which comes handy as it expands the existing borders, establishing a socialistic state called DPRK. Moscow inaugurates a 33-year-old Kim Il-sung, who at the time was a battalion commander. Both of the rulers strive to unite Korea, hence constant skirmishes that turned eventually into the fully fledged Korean War. Soon US joins in and sends its troops to the south, whilst USSR, with Chinese help, as a result, 3 years of war and a resolution that splits the peninsula in two, roughly equal parts, turning it into a demilitarized area. Concrete blocks here are supported, just check this out, by wooden planks that can be taken out to let them roll and block the road, which connects the two sides, in case army or tanks come from the south. There are loads of these blocks here. That's what they look like. The hatred between the two parts is so big that North Korean propaganda states that children have to give blood in capitalistic South Korea in order to pay for school and university. And after lessons, they clean shoes for the US Army. All roads that lead deeper into the country boast concrete blocks that can be triggered in case of danger. They can be found both on highways and on secondary roads. A town close to the border is accounted for as an enclosed area, and all visitors must file for permit 2 weeks before visiting, and your reason for visit must be incredibly good. This is what the permit looks like. It has to be shown every 4 checkpoints. Mind you, I could have been jailed for espionage for taking these photos of a government checkpoint. This is the border between North Korea and South Korea. Lots of US soldiers on that side, and as they say in North Korea, the South Korean Toy Army. Both South Korea and North Korea do not regard themselves as either North or South. It's what foreigners call them. North Korea think that South Korea is part of their country, temporarily occupied by US capitalists. It is for decades that North Korea has isolated itself from the world, trying to prove to its people that it won that war. This is done by not letting anyone out of the country, except for approved government officials. And this is why it's a norm to see barbed wire close to water, so no one can abandon the state. They are also eager to reassure the outside world. But the postcard North Korea finishes as you delve further into the country. On our way from China, we see a promenade and broken carousels to make it look nice from the Chinese side. In reality, it's all rusted, never works, and there is no one around since it's a militarized area. Next, you see the truth. Herds of sheep next to buildings, people fish in puddles, not even lakes, kids swimming in grey water, or a child playing in the leftover sand from construction works. The fields are ploughed manually, lawns are trimmed by hand across the entire country. All of this is because there is hardly any fuel in North Korea, whilst more than half of the country lives without electricity. 56% according to the World Bank. This is how North Korea, the crest of which includes a power plant, looks from satellite, from 11 PM to 5 AM. Electricity is cut even in the capital, which is the reason why there are solar panels hanging from nearly every window, balcony, in front of the house. Even a train is wired to one, hanging from the door handle. Locals' reaction to our super modern train is as follows. The real North Korean trains that no foreigner has ever stepped into look like this. The carriages are so old that they can't even be scrapped, but are still used on routes, and instead of air conditioning, it's plastic bottles that hold the window open. People are sitting one on another. There is clearly not enough space. The architecture of all of the towns along the border are very similar to one another. I guess it works as follows. Along the train rails there are trees with some nice painted housing, and behind it's slums. They are usually fenced so you can't see through, although there are places where the fence is either in ruins or hasn't been built yet, which allows us to see what's on the other side. It is clear that there is more than one family living under the same roof. A building with different roofing means that one family sourced tiles and that the other didn't bother and left metal sheets only. and some just pile wood planks. This is what the slums look like from inside. Some wood because no central heating, naked stone walls, plates and belongings on the floor, as there is no furniture. There is no asphalt in the villages, no plumbing. Locals wash their clothes and bathe in the river. These soldiers are bathing after work. You can also see cars running on wood in some areas. This picture was taken by an AP reporter in 2014. Slums also exist in the cities. I'd love to say that they were extinct, but compare this picture, taken by Artem Lebedev in 2006, and this exact place today from the same point of view. I don't see changes. The only difference is that the fence is made to look like the building has changed colour from white to green. And when I asked my guide what it is, she pointed in the other direction and said, "That's where the beautiful lotus flowers are grown." Mind you, people even live in partly demolished houses, half of which is missing, but people still live there. After work, the parks are full of people, sitting on the ground in their office wear, playing card games. Women are also here, but grouped separately, at their own spots. Main thing is to take off your shoes. Koreans have a strange way of resting. 2 women are sitting on bricks. Some guy pissing next to the main military museum. Someone's casually chatting on asphalt. A girl sitting on the lawn. These are random shots. The area where a foreigner usually ends up is generally predetermined. This is the most good-looking street in Pyongyang. It's teeming with new builds, including the most beautiful building that I saw here. Our country gives these flats to university employees. Yep. This version of socialistic wonderment is told to everyone, from tourists to foreign government officials. That same street from bird's eye view, around 50 tall buildings. Taking into account that a 9-story building houses roughly 150 flats, although these buildings are much higher, we end up with 25,000 flats. Where do they find so many professors? I struggle to understand, but most of these flats are empty, absolutely no signs of life, empty balconies. Here is a populated house for comparison. Curtains, flowers, mops, bottles. New builds are for postcards and for foreigners to see. It's the only street where you're allowed to walk, although with security, and only for 10 minutes, North Korea strives to make an impression. As an example, there is a nice bright house behind this monument that symbolises prosperity. Now, if you look closer, it doesn't even have windows. No one lives there. It's just a box, built so the background looks nice. Here is a train station looking nice and beautiful. You would never guess that its roof is rotting from rust. Fountains nevertheless work and are nice looking. But how much do they cost to run? These outdoor pumps run on electricity, which is like gold across the country. Even the most expensive hotels are sometimes left without it, including the lifts. Typical schools never get shown to visitors. You can see children cleaning the grounds. I spotted this from the 20th floor. Whilst girls wash the fence, these guys take care of the grounds that are clean as it is. They just wipe air for about 30 minutes. Can't say they're keen anyways. A separate employee makes sure that both students and teachers are never late. Opposingly, this is the school I was brought into. The building looks like a parliament house. Inside is a kind of a school for exemplary children and an exemplary performance on stage. These girls looked a little bit weird to me, so I zoomed in and saw that they're not actually playing at all. The music is pre-recorded, and this is just part of the show. Sound comes out of a JBL speaker, which is another hostile company. Next door, kids are on exemplary laptops, some of which aren't connected to the mains and don't have any cables in general. Computers run on Windows 95, but not many people know that North Korea has its own operating system based on Linux. It looks like a Mac OS, but buttons to close and enlarge the window are square instead of being round. Instead of Apple in the corner, you get a red star, which is what the OS is called. This OS makes occasional screenshots of your laptop, saving them to a folder a user can't access. All computers in North Korea, even if you can afford one, must be registered with the police. You have to go to the police station, and then they will come and visit you once every 2 months to check your PC. Moreover, this OS does not open files that were not made on your PC unless there is a special chip in place. If a company that you work for gives you a USB with such chip, you'll be able to open your files. But if it's a non-chip USB, you won't open even a text file. Internet is not allowed in North Korea. Foreigners and those close to the government have it, but even if you're a tourist, you have to fill in a form with personal details to send an email. Then a specialist will come to power up the dial-up modem. Library PCs have intranet and access to 28 internal websites. It's where you can catch up on government ideology, cooking websites, and others. You can even access these on mobile, and North Koreans have access to just one. It has a fingerprint sensor and they are extremely proud of it. And 4 main apps. Phonebook, an app that has addresses, and since SatNav is forbidden, it just stores street names. Next is messaging, and the last app that lets you receive messages from the government. We can read newspapers via this app. Newspapers? Really? As for games, there is chess. North Koreans pride themselves that the phone needs to be charged only once every 2 days, and it's understandable since there is no data. I only saw government officials with these phones, and its cost is around $300. Journalists who managed to test the phone wrote that they checked the serial number, and turns out the phone is made in China, and only OS is set up in North Korea. Don't know if the mobiles are tapped, but they definitely record the foreigners. Each hotel room has a radio-looking thing. I'm really surprised by this, by the level of the country's development and how extremely advanced it is. A typical radio needs 1 cable. This, though, has a myriad. When I showed this to tapping professionals, they said that's too many cables, even for recording equipment, suggesting add-ons. I cannot confirm if this is tap equipment, but current tech allows for microchips to be attached to TV cables or even a window, decoding vibrations from glass. I doubt they tap absolutely everyone, but there is definitely an opportunity to do so. It's interesting that the radio doesn't work in any of the hotels. Tourists are under constant control, and even within hotel buildings, you can't just go anywhere. You're allowed to walk around your floor and the first floor. Stairs are banned also. The itinerary of every tourist is planned well before you visit and must be approved by the government. It is then constantly verified by minute, 24 hours a day. I'm followed by 3 people, and I mean followed all the time. I can't even go from my room to a breakfast area without being followed. They meet me and take me there. That's them there. By the way, our guide has that phone I showed earlier. 6 missed calls from the government. It is interesting that it takes roughly 20 steps from my hotel to a restaurant, and still, you see that woman behind me? She'll now just stand there and watch me walk, just in case I decide to turn somewhere else. As a tourist, you don't get any free time to walk around. If you disobey, you risk being deported. Your guides, who stay at the same hotel as you, but with different rooms of course, file daily reports. That woman there is currently doing one. They are all basic guys, but those who can randomly ask you to show them your phone. First time it happened, I was in awe. Gave him a locked phone. He didn't know how to unblock it and asked me to show him pictures. Started going through my family photos, but luckily, North Koreans don't know of the existence of a recently removed phone. I have a few spare seconds now, and check these number plates out. They are all blue. There are 3 types of cars in Pyongyang. Those registered as companies, blue plates, military with black plates, and the government with white plates. An average local can't afford a car. They start at $4,000 US, and this is too expensive. A rare occasion when a local gets a car, he or she becomes a popular singer, so the government gifts them a vehicle. Top management drives Lexus and Toyota. It is a new class of rich Koreans that we'll discuss later. Whilst common people drive Chinese, FAWs, and even Ladas, but mainly to go to work only. If you have a car here, you are the boss. Not one car would ever stop at a pedestrian crossing, even on the most postcard street. You can see how people let the cars pass, and only then cross the road. Outside of the capital, it is hard to find any cars at all, and locals walk on the road, not even looking over to check for transport. Riding a horse or a cow is still the norm. The official version of why there aren't many cars around is as follows. The government doesn't allow cars. To eliminate traffic jams? Yes, for the sake of the people. So if it's still unclear to you, Pyongyang is the best city on earth because you can see it from this street. Parks on one side, houses on the other, and only in the middle, the truth begins. One more site that strives to make an impression is the Wonder Supermarket. This looks similar to shops we used to have during the USSR. They tell me I can't film inside. Your bags get packed up, and then it's shelves with produce. And prices that will blow your mind. Milk, $3. Reason being is that there aren't many cows, and farms are full of bulls that plough the fields. Locals use dry milk that is then used to make yogurts, sweets, ice cream. Let's try the North Korean ice cream. It has a taste of, no, not strawberry, it's like calcium. In case you were unaware, it's chalk powder. At least it's vitamins. Jesus. It's not great. Tastes like kimchi. Very watery and not that sweet. With a taste of wood. Maybe because of the wooden stick? No. Still some wood taste. Import products are most expensive here. A Nescafe can cost $13. Green tea is $20. Local produce is much cheaper. Instant noodles cost 50 cents. But mind you, the taste is very different. There's no Coke here, no Fanta, no Sprite, since US products are banned. But there are similar drinks. This fake Fanta is $0.01 of a dollar. Hold your applause though. Someone appeared right when I was about to test the Coke, so I've saved it until now, to give you my genuine impression. First difference is the label. A very unstable label with a QR code. Yeah, a QR code. Who needs it here? In a country with no internet. A distant taste of Coke, but with added other tastes of some car liquid, like engine oil or something, brake fluid. This supermarket is generally for tourists and government officials. Some products are only available to locals. As for example, we couldn't buy a notebook with "for school use" written on it.
Not allowed. Not allowed? Really? Only for Koreans?
It's not the average Koreans that come here either. There is a face control on the doors, and these two women tell the security who to let in and who to turn away. Like here, for example. He just tells these people to leave the grounds. Average locals buy produce under bridges. Here, women on bikes sell fruits and veg, and all of them sell something separate. One sells apples, one sells watermelon, lemons, and so on, to eliminate competition. Villagers on this street sell ice cream. Of course, they have markets here also, with bags of rice on the ground, regardless of whether it's rain or snow. Even soldiers sell produce. This one has seaweed. This is an example of a city shop. Random black door, and a shop sign. Some, though, don't even have a sign. This is a random porch of a random house. And here, behind some random door, with no signs, is a grocery shop. For locals only. Opposite to a fire extinguisher is the entrance, with a clerk's phone number, in case he's not in. Employees live right in the shop. They have a washing machine, a shower head, with sleeping quarters down the hall. These shops can be found in residential areas, so you don't have to carry produce over a long distance. Groceries are given with ration cards. Everyone has a special card book, and this is how we get groceries. Yes, that's right. So you get rice, well, what else? Rice, meat, oil, pasta. On holidays we get additional stuff, like sweets and cookies. We also get soap, toothpaste, and chemicals. And even clothes. Is it like a uniform? Something the same that everyone wears? No, just casual stuff. Not pants, but underwear. General stuff. Ties for boys. Main stuff, basically. And if it's some other clothes, then you pay with a book. You have to work for that. According to propaganda, the average wage in Pyongyang is $50, but those who fled the country say it's $5. This is still a lie though. Let's assume that the actual number is $20 to $30. In order to earn more, you need to have a permit to work abroad. The shop that I showed you just now was filmed in the North Korean part of China. To understand how these guys were allowed to open a private shop of a socialistic state, but abroad, it's important to highlight that the Soviet system began to crack as early as the 90s. Breakup of the USSR resulted in a dry up of oil, coal and other supplies at preferential prices. From then on, the North Korean government had to pay for everything in cash and at market prices. A free 700-gram ration that originally included flour, potatoes and corn got decreased to 492 grams, and then to 180 grams for pensioners and disabled. This is roughly half a glass. This was followed by floods and an extreme hunger began. You were lucky to even catch a rat, and people turned into cannibals, with dead bodies filling the streets. Propaganda states that around 10,000 people died. Foreign organisations state a different number, from 1 to 2 million people, 15% of the population. Women and orphans tried to flee, but the government stopped them by every method. Chinese police captures North Korean refugees.
I also witnessed my first public execution when I was 7 years old. The North Korean authorities want people live in a constant state of fear, so they force us to watch public executions. So sometimes the schools cancel their classes so all the students could witness the public execution.
To isolate those who tried to flee, a punishment system was put in place that exists even till today. 77 kilometers from Pyongyang, we pass a place called Camp 14. There is a minimum of 6 of these camps, where 80 to 120,000 Koreans are jailed. The camps we know of are Camp Haveren, located 70 kilometers from the Russian border, 300 guards, with prisoners jailed for food theft, for trying to flee to China. Camp 16, the biggest camp out there, located in a remote mountain location with 20,000 life sentence prisoners, mainly those who were against the government. Camp 14 is the one we passed by. Prisoners work in textiles and on the mines. This is where the famous Lee Sun-ok fled from, after spending 6 years here. She shared stories of rapes, abuse, abortion and other horrors. She mentioned it in her book later. Camp 11, mostly for females, and according to some, it has been closed. Prisoners here were jailed for prostitution, theft and flea attempts. The camp is surrounded by fields where prisoners are occupied with farming. These camps, just like places of weapon development, are the most secret in the country. It's only the satellite images that give us a glimpse of them. Most are far from civilization and can be spotted with characteristics like multiple security towers. These shots show how armed soldiers watch over farming prisoners, who later carry stones and wood. Unfortunately, we don't know where these shots were made, and there is a chance it's not even a camp. Things that happen inside can only be shared by those who were there and managed to flee. This is Kim Hee-suk, who managed to speak out once in South Korea.
I went to the prison camp when I was only 13 years old, and I got out when I was 41. My entire family went to prison. Some were taken to the mountains, others were put in different labor camps, all because of my grandfather's one mistake. He escaped to South Korea during the Korean War.
Yeah, in North Korea, the whole family of a criminal gets jailed. Husband and wife are allowed to live together, and there is a school for kids born in these camps. Camp consists of 2 parts. Absolute control part for those doing life, where you won't find ideology lessons, and portraits of the leaders. Prisoners are deemed hopeless and unworthy of North Korean ideology. Everywhere else though, portraits are a must. In underground carriages, they cover the Made in Germany plaques. Government prefers to tell its people that everything is manufactured locally, while some trains are made in Western Germany. The cult of the leader began to form a year after North Korea was established, up till now remaining one of the pillars of North Korean ideology. Even the country's calendar starts from the leader's date of birth. Formally, it's not 2019 here now. It's the year 108 from the beginning of Juche, which is what the ideology is called. The ideas behind it are that a man decides everything. It doesn't sound bad, prompting you to be independent, but upon application, these ideas are there just to justify the closed state of the country, whilst making its leaders look godlike. Today is 3 of them: Kim Il-sung, his son Kim Jong-il, and his grandson Kim Jong-un. Every time you pronounce their names, you have to add Supreme Leader, whilst Kim Il-sung is the son of the nation. Newspapers mention that the leaders can predict weather, and God forbid you fold the newspaper if it has the leader's picture on it. I mean, I've tried my best, but don't know how best to fold it. Religion has for a long time been banned and is still not favourable. If you get caught with a Bible, you get sent to a camp. There is a saying that God doesn't help you, and if you bring flowers to the statue of the leader, your life will be full of luck. It's the first place where tourists get taken. The 25-metre statues. Our leader is the father of our country, don't you think? That's right. If I'm going through hard time, I come here. Our leader has not only united the country, but also freed us, became the stepping stone for the country we lived in, serving as an example of how to overcome difficulties. So I look at him and think that just like him, I will overcome my personal problems. It's how you calm yourself, right? This is what calms me. It is mandatory to buy flowers on the way to the statue. These flowers are real, unlike those that were bought for kids, which were later returned to the shop. There are rules when you approach the statues. Do we stand here? You form a row and bow for about 5 seconds, twisted in half. Afterwards, there are even more rules. To enter the building, where embalmed bodies of the leaders are, you have to wear a suit. Then you form a row of 4 people each. Rows with locals are organised by height. Then everything is taken from your pockets. And even this one pill that fell out of my pocket had to be left outside. You have to button up, fully, and walk with your hands in front of you, or along the body, not behind your back. Once you reach the body, you have to bow 3 times. Once near the feet, then near left side, then the right side. There are people there who navigate you around, showing what side of the column to take. They are all armed. It's an army, put simply. Yeah, it's not an excursion, it's a visit. Because Kim Il-sung is obviously alive, taking selfies in front of the building. Your hands must be close to your body. You cannot smile much and can't hold hands with your family. If anyone is still not convinced in the greatness of the leaders, there is a museum of gifts to change that. 4 hours of non-stop walking, floor to floor, endless rooms, gifts and details about them, what country, what year, etc. Starting from planes, all the way to knives, and the most basic cups that can be found literally anywhere, for pennies. I mentioned this gift, a crocodile with a tray of cups, in the visitor's book, which sparked endless questions. As per why the crocodile? Did it look funny to me? I said that it is a symbol of strength, that the DPRK does not use aggressively, and they were happy with this. Lots of presents from Russia, minimum 10 bear furs, from some regional municipalities, factories and other organisations. Everything is described in detail. How much the gift weighs, even weight of cars is mentioned. There were gifts from Stalin. They asked me if I've ever seen such cars. I replied positively and they got upset, saying that in this museum you are meant to see things that you've never seen. This is how they form the cult of the leader. And for a child, I'd assume it's all very impressive, getting him to think that the leader is really the supreme one. The biography of Kim Il-sung is one of the main subjects in school. And children who only have holidays in August parade the streets, singing patriotic songs. The flags cannot be put on the ground. It's not only the uniform that is the same for everyone, but also haircuts, clearly displayed by these girls. Slogans and posters aimed at supreme leaders can even be found in kindergartens, where children learn how to read. Such posters with guns and spires are also the norm here, whilst it is recommended to only draw pictures that would bring joy to the leaders. So here is a picture of a USA tank in flames. Hatred towards the US is ingrained from a young age, as one of the most popular cartoons, remaining for 35 years, is a chipmunk and a hedgehog, in which the US is represented by wolves, the baddies. During school years, children visit museums of damaged US tanks, which are kept in pristine condition, wiping dust on a daily basis. These are American bombs that they dropped on us during the war. This is all in great condition. We look after it all. There is a funny film about a US ship that was captured 50 years ago that is constantly shown here. And just listen to the words they choose. Those arrogant imperialists from the US tried to impose their sick-minded will. arrogantly raging across the whole world, did not even look back trying to escape. The hate is so big that locals don't know a single world celebrity. Do you mean the Beatles? You heard of them? No, I haven't. Do you like Michael Jackson? We are not allowed to listen to any American music. Only other singers can, so it's only for musicians, right? It's strange that hatred towards the US did not stop with Kim Jong-il from having a MacBook Pro with a 15-inch display, which can now be found in the museum, but filming was not permitted. There are many speakers in the rest areas of the city, via which leaders can communicate to the people, pushing their ideology, serving as another form of propaganda. Moreover, cars that drive around with speakers, transmitting slogans of the party, and evening news about the leaders on TV, and are read with added awe-inspiring voice.
경야는 최고 사령관 김정은 원수님께서는 567 군부대 관하 18호 수산 사업소를 현지지도 하셨습니다.
I managed to translate some of it for you, and I'm surprised how this wasn't written by a king or queen.
선진적인 방농법을 적극 받아들여
All farmers actively took progressive thinking of our supreme leader, sinking it deep into their hearts. Our leader Kim Jong-un has visited a kindergarten, following his promise. These kids have no deprivation and limits. This is how it will be from now on, said the supreme leader. There are two main TV channels in North Korea. One starts broadcasting from 7 PM, whilst the second works on Sundays only. This channel is Chinese, and it is aired in hotels only. For the rest of the time, North Korean channels look like this. As for international news, they're broadcast once a week, on Sundays only. What surprised me, I recently met a local Korean, and she is aware of some local Russian news, but also dreams of visiting Czechoslovakia and East Germany. Can you believe this? They managed to know some local, minuscule Russian news, but fail to know that certain countries no longer exist for decades. Stories about failing socialistic regimes do not work in favour of the government, and propaganda is one of the main budgetary expenses. Take a dance show, for example, that as part of the ceremony leaves even Olympic Games behind. Tickets are distributed via factories and organisations. It's not really a leisure show, but 2 hours of brainwashing. Excuse my location, but it's the only safe place to film from. The show is about the fact that supreme leaders are the greatest. Sorry for the sounds. So, socialism is key, and the only way for the growth of potatoes, tomatoes, and bright future in general. Another important thought is that if leaders are happy, the crop will also be great. This show is conducted daily during summertime. Daily during summertime. Jesus Christ! I've just been told that there is a Russian reporter somewhere there, and chances that he recognises me are huge. If that happens and he mentions me to his guide, I think I'll be jailed for life. In the next episode, you'll see me hiding from Russian journos in women's sunnies, and how I try and escape my guide, 2 meters away. We'll find out how much do locals earn, and translate them chatting to one another. As it turned out to be very interesting. They clearly didn't expect that I'd ever be able to translate it. What should I tell this prick? I will also show you why North Korea is not a socialist state any longer, and how did the upper class appear, with Burberry bags, buying those empty flats in the postcard quarter. Flats there are empty, because supply is much greater than demand. Flats below the 5th floor are most popular, as when there is no electricity, they become the most convenient. I will also travel to the Russian border, and speak to those who not only saw, but captured refugees. Alright guys, This is what we're giving away today. Before I tell you how to win all of this, and how to follow me on Instagram, let's try that powdered tea. Let's try that powdered tea that I bought in the supermarket in North Korea. It's weird because it's just powder with no smell at all. Or maybe this is how human ashes smell. Alright, it smells even more of ashes now. Creepy smell. Oh no. Freaking disgusting. Taste of powder that's been picked up from the floor. That's what this taste is. So back to the giveaway. A banknote of 5,000 won, real North Korean money that I managed to get by exchanging something with a local. By texture, it reminds me of old Russian rubles. Very similar quality. Then we have the Snake Moonshine, 700 milliliters. It also comes with a QR code that you can test, of course, and get acquainted with North Korean technology. But this amazing poster behind me, it is handmade. Includes Kim Il-sung and a departing rocket. Handmade by an artist who I met in the demilitarized zone on the South Korea-North Korea border. So, what do you have to do? As you know, North Korea occasionally launches rockets and conducts nuclear tests. It's always breaking news and they are everywhere. Your task is to guess on what day Kim Jong-un will do the next launch. I'm looking for an exact date, and your answer must be posted on my Instagram. Yeah, if you want to follow me there, and this is why I started all of this, I promise to give all of this away. Won't leave anything for myself. Just a fair exchange between us. On my IG, you'll find a picture of me in this tracksuit, and this is where you need to post your answers. Link to that pic can also be found below, so you don't mess anything up. When is the next launch, guys? Gifts will be given to those first 3 who call out the correct date. Of course, subscribe to the channel. Second episode is coming out soon, where you'll find very interesting investigations. I actually think that it was pretty lucky that I stumbled across that info. Those guys on the train, for example, I won't talk about it now. I'm sorry for delaying this, but to those who comment that I'm a total boop for taking too long to produce these videos, I'm terribly sorry and hope you understand. Please subscribe.
Olá pessoal, tudo bem? Aqui é o Tradutor, é graças a essas pessoas incríveis que eu posso estar trazendo conteúdo para vocês. E é isso aí pessoal, não se esqueçam de deixar seu like, seu comentário e até mais. Fui, grande abraço.